Normanade is really confidential, and if you want to release emotions, talk to somebody, Normanade is a very mindful place to come, and they will help you seek support. If you're worried that you know someone, like a friend, who may be suicidal, that you can reference them to Normanade, a professional will come and take care of them.
I think just because you're sharing something with me, that means I need to be the fixer. And fixer is one of the problems, actually, of the mental, health problems. That I think I'm responsible to fix the world's problems, which actually comes from thinking that I'm higher than you. It sounds like a good idea, but it's like, why can't you do it if it's your problem?
Hi, my name is Kyler Dadman. I am a student at Beverly Hills High School. Today you're watching the Make Today Well Live podcast, Season 6, Episode 2. We brought two very special guests, Benji and Mitra. Thank you guys for coming. And let's start with the first question. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and sort of what inspired you to work in the mental health and wellness field?
Hello, my name is Mitra Manesh. I'm a mindfulness educator, which means I teach, coach, train, podcast, and speak on the topic of mindfulness. I teach at UCLA and I teach privately. Mindfulness is a very generic word and many people use it these days, but the way I define it is that mindfulness is being aware and accepting of our present moment experience with curiosity and compassion. So we're going to probably talk about it later. And your question was, how did I get to this? Through my own mental health problems and experiences that were extremely challenging. So when I was around your age, probably, I lost my father, I lost my best friend, and then a bit later I lost my country, I lost all my community and support system. And I decided that going in and going deep and working from inside might be helpful, and it was. So that's how I got into it. Ben?
My name is Ben Dadman, and I am we can say an entrepreneur, an investor, and philanthropist. I had done very well in my career and achieved all of my financial goals, and realized after that just how utterly unfulfilled I was. And that really spearheaded me going deeper into my own personal development and spiritual development, and working with Mitra, actually. And it's been a commitment to me to not only to my own personal development and spiritual development, but to also do what I can to raise awareness for others, and particularly through my own personal experience. So sharing my personal experience through the podcast that we co-host. It's called The Interview Podcast.
So next question, what are some signs that you guys think a student should look out for in case they want to seek help, either mentally or for their own well-being, and so on?
All right. So the first sign, and I'm very practical in talking about mental challenges, I have extreme dyslexia, so I simplify everything in order to understand it. The best way to understand when anybody is having challenging experience is to understand that what's in front of them, the experiences that are in front of them, are bigger than the capacity they hold in that moment. And it's a very simple way. It's like, I can't take anything anymore. And when we become very sensitive to sounds, to words, to discussions, to interactions, to anything, we become hypersensitive. That means that we are at capacity. That has been the case for me and many people, that students and people that I work with. It's like capacity is smaller than what they have to deal with. So that's how I see it. Ben?
I'll just add that resonates with my personal experience too. And I'll just add that sometimes our threshold for what we think we can handle increases, and we tell ourselves that Yeah, I am experiencing more stress than usual, but I can handle this. This is normal. And kind of that threshold that we have for ourselves in our minds, we set it higher and higher and higher. And in my personal experience, until I reach a breaking point. And that breaking point is usually very uncomfortable. It's even gotten to the point in the past where I've had an anxiety attack. So there is a skill to being able to recognize what is that point where it's beyond what is, we'll say, normal. And I'm sure we can open that up.
Something that kind of relates to that is, how can a student start the conversation for reaching out for help whenever they need it?
So there is the student's responsibility, then there is the responsibility of the school and the peer group. As far as the self-responsibility is concerned, is that my really one and only job is to take care of me. I mean, and I'm a mother, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a partner, I'm all of that, but also my responsibility is to myself and my well-being. So really taking responsibility, that's the first thing. I'm responsible for my well-being. And then there is the responsibility of the larger community, the school, the peer group that, when we went to the world of psychology and therapy, you guys weren't born there, but I saw that evolution happen. It was wonderful because we gave name to conditions that like, I feel this, I have ADHD, you have this, I'm bipolar, you're that. And then unfortunately it turned into a fun game of like swear words. Like, it's like, she's so bipolar, he's like ADHD. It became a really bad game to play. And that's when it made it very difficult for people to come out and say, because I see everybody's making fun of this. It will be hard for me to come and say, hey, like, I'm one of those people. I actually have that. So long answer to the question, but for me, it's really understanding that I am responsible, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going at least to do something about it, if not talk about it. So that's where I would start.
And I'll just add that being curious about what we're experiencing can be really helpful. So if I have in the past, if I have started to feel discomfort, anxiety, stress, what I might do is actually learn a little bit about what I might be going through myself. Now we have so many resources. We have even ChatGPT is an incredible resource for these type of things, right? So you could even begin to understand what you're going through by asking questions to even ChatGPT, and it'll give you a vocabulary for what you're going through and help you understand. And then when you have that understanding, it will likely be a lot easier to reach out to someone, the right person, and ask for help.
I never even thought about ChatGPT. Yeah, it's the future. And sort of kind of to add on to that, because I think I've seen people struggle with this, and I've seen people around me experience this. When someone feels like they don't have anyone to talk to, when they feel trapped inside themselves, then what should they do? What's the next step they should take if they feel like no one around them can really support them?
So the first thing is journaling, because I don't need to do anything in order to journal. All I need is, and journaling old-fashioned is much better when you actually remember paper and pen. You guys, you don't use it, but there's paper and pen. And there's neuroscience behind that when I actually write with the hand and I see it, there's a different kind of reaction that I have than when I type it or, however. So journaling, because, Ben said that when you give words to your feelings, they're no longer unknown, because unknown always has far more hold and power on us. Like if there was some noise of going ooh right now, we will all be petrified. Right. But if you see me doing it, you think it's funny. I say ooh, you say Mitra. Right. So what is the difference? The difference is that you can't see. It's vague. It's like, oh, what is it? Where is it coming from? So when we start journaling, we actually give words and voice to that which I am experiencing inside of me. And then, of course, are the other things, speaking about it. I think it's so important, these peer groups that we never had in our time. There was no peer group. In fact, they would say, like, put yourself together, like, why are you crying? Like, all these things were really things that we had to cover, or we had to sort of see it as a sign of weakness, whereas actually these are sign of strength. The fact that I can stand here and I say, you know what, I'm really suffering today. I'm very emotional today. I had a really, really rough start to my day. That takes the strength, not weakness. Weakness is when I say, "How are you go? I'm very good," and everybody can tell I'm not very good, but I want to cover it up. So covering up is weakness. Speaking out is a strength. So start journaling, start speaking, giving voice to your own feelings, and then of course there is forming or finding. Both of them are helpful, because a lot of times I say, find and say, oh, there is nothing around. I said, then form one. All you need is one more person. I can just say, Morgan, do you want to, can I just speak to you? And then Morgan may know somebody, and then she comes and tells you, before I know it, and I've literally done this, both as a teacher and as a student. I mean, we didn't call it peer group. We called it friends talking. But that's what it is. And usually those with more feminine energy are better at this than those with masculine energy. So I'm not talking gender. I'm talking about the main energy that we have.
I think that from what I've learned and from what I've seen over the years, I think when you're looking at it from a social, cultural perspective, a lot of people feel like if I don't reach out for help, it won't fit my cultural norms, or it won't fit my cultural expectations, which is why, in living in such a diverse country, I think that's why so many people are afraid to reach out.
There will always be help, and you are never alone. It is amazing when one person dares to say how they feel, and usually I ask in the class, because I say, anybody else has experienced that? Almost every time, everyone raises their hand. And if they don't, that's fine too. It's okay. I'm sure there's a perfect person living somewhere in the world. I've never met them. I've lived on 4 continents, and I've been doing this work for 40 years. I'm yet to meet that perfect person that we have made up in our minds. Right. But let's say they exist, and I'm ignorant that I haven't met them. But most people can. I'm not alone. I'm only alone in hiding what I'm feeling. Otherwise, I'm not alone. The moment I say, I felt this and that, and did you guys, anybody can relate to that? That actually becomes the connector. That's how you make communities. Definitely. By your pain and suffering, and by your goal and passion. Right. So just dare to be the first one. Yeah.
Amen. I'll say that I was a man who very much kept to myself. And I was so scared to open up to people because I didn't understand what I was going through. I just knew I felt pressure inside of me. It was uneasy. I didn't have a vocabulary for it, which didn't help. And so I just thought, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what it is. There's something wrong with me, and there's no point in being able to or bringing it up to anybody, because I don't even understand what I'm going through. I just feel an unease, and it doesn't feel good. And so it's so, going to even that can be part of your process of vulnerability, by the way. It can be that I'm just feeling uneasy and I don't understand it. And that's just what I'm going through right now. And you'd be amazed at how much opens up to you when you do that, how much you end up learning about yourself. And the education piece, I think, is so important. If you are going through a difficult time, you don't understand why you're going through that, there's so many resources out there. Not only ChatGPT, there's books, there's all sorts of books that help educate you on, give you a vocabulary for what you're going through. And it really, really helps to open up. Yeah.
Next, how can a student deal with stress in a healthy way when they feel overstimulated and overstressed?
We ain't broken. We're not fridges and stoves. We ain't broken, because the whole message is that if you can't handle this too much, you're broken. That's why we start hiding it.
Right.
Because I think it's bad and I'm broken. There's something wrong with me, exactly what Ben was saying. But really to understand that, stress is part of life. The question is how much of a stress. And I always divide stress in two kinds of stress. One is self-imposed. One is life-imposed. Most of our stress, believe it or not, is self-imposed. Okay, sure, I have a deadline and I have this and I have that, but then I expect it to be this way. That's self-imposed. So separating the stress and putting it in two categories. What are the things that I really need to do and there's nothing I can do about? And what are the things that is just like this, I always call this person who lives rent-free upstairs in your head. Have you ever had that? You guys have got the same guy? Yeah, because sometimes I think I'm the only one. But yeah, there's somebody that is like, in their job is like to constantly bug me, put me down, pick at me. It's like, you're not good enough. By the way, see how they go. And I'm thinking, shush, I'm handling this. Like, leave me alone. But that's the self-imposed stress, that there is this imaginary, like, wonderful, perfect person, and we exaggerate other people's good fortune and exaggerate our bad fortune. So there are these lucky people, and then there's me.
Right.
If I tell you how many people have told me that, and I'm thinking, my God, there's a pattern here, that we all think there's this like wonderful person. So separating those stress, understanding that actually stress is the reason for our growth. So stress is not bad. Too much stress, inappropriate stress, unhealthy stress is not good.
And something that has to do with therapy is I think that people have a perception in their head that therapy is for the weak, like how we talked about before. You're a girl if you go to therapy, you're a baby, you're all this stuff. So what would you say to a student that thinks therapy is really for weak-minded and broken people?
I mean, I dealt with that. I remember the first time I went to therapy, I was in college, and I had such a rough time my freshman year of college. I was in denial about it. I just felt a lot of pressure, and I reached a tipping point where I had an anxiety attack, and I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. I had heard about resources that are anonymous therapy at the university, and I secretly went and I got therapy. I didn't tell anybody. So this UC Irvine. So wow, what a misperception that is. What a misperception that is, because Mitra, as you pointed out before, none of us are perfect. And no matter how much we look outside of us and we see that person and we think that they have it well, they're not dealing with issues, it's not true. We all have our challenges and our issues, and our challenges and our issues are actually gold mines. That was a big perception shift for me, was what I'm going through is not a bad thing. Actually, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to grow, to expand, to exercise courage, and in doing so, I can actually help others. I can help my friends, family members. It raises my awareness, and I have a much greater appreciation actually for life, because I came from a place where it was more difficult, and I was able to learn and grow and evolve. So that paradigm shift was really helpful for me, and really recognizing the whole stigma of therapy is just, it's all our imagination. Therapy is a process of, it's about being curious about yourself. You're being curious about yourself. And it's far easier to be curious about yourself when you're talking to someone who understands the human mind, understands human psychology, and can mirror back to you and reflect back to you. Really? So it's a process of curiosity and learning more about ourselves.
Hi, my name's Morgan. I work as a peer counselor in the Norman Aid Center. And my first question to start off with is, I know a lot, especially with friends, where they don't really want to talk about their feelings because there's a constant cycle of never feeling like sick enough or never feeling like you're in enough pain to where you can open up and tell people about like your grief or like how you're truly feeling like on the inside. And so how would you want to be supported if you were going through that, or how would you want to support a friend who you watched this happen to?
This is something that I struggled with a lot. I always felt like what I was going through would be a burden for other people. And one thing that really pushed me away is when people would try to offer me solutions. I hated that. I really hated that. And also when people became overly worried about me, they became concerned about me, that made me not want to open up. As opposed to people who just gave me their presence and didn't label or judge what I was going through. They just listened, and they made comments like, I understand, that must be difficult. Yeah, I've been through something like that before. And it doesn't, it feels like not much is happening, but me being on the receiving end of that, oh my God, is so powerful. Because it's a form of love. And, love really is so healing. And we want to believe that there's something we need to do to help someone be fixed or go through their problem. Like there's got to be a solution. And sometimes just that presence, that loving presence, is so, so powerful. You'd be amazed at what it can do for someone.
To confirm further what Ben was saying, I tried to summarize the problems of the world from my experience. As I said, for 4 decades on 4 continents I've lived. And from boardrooms to bedrooms to classrooms, I've helped people. If I was to identify one problem, we are all feel unheard. We feel unheard at home, at work, at school, and all the places in between. So if you just listened, because we go into fixing mode. I think just because you're sharing something with me, that means I need to be the fixer. And fixer is one of the problems, actually, of the mental, health problems, that I think I'm responsible to fix the world's problems, which actually comes from thinking that I'm higher than you. It sounds like a good idea, but it's like, why can't you do it if it's your problem? So hearing them. And I would just add one more thing, asking them instead of telling them, because we tell people. Like, I think we should, I ask them, how can I support you? And that very question, asked with compassion, as you said, not judgment, allows me to hold my body parasympathetic, to settle down. That is like, oh, wow, Morgan wants to know how she can help me. You've already helped me when you asked that question. So give me your presence, listen to me instead of telling me, ask me, I may come up with some ideas, and then allow it to be okay. Because when you get too upset from my upsetness, now I have double upsetness that I have to deal with. But when you hold it with presence and neutrality, then I realize, this was okay. I'm okay. Just went through a rough period. That's okay.
I agree completely. For me, I can be a terrible person when people are trying to really get in there and trying to solve my problems for me, and I don't mean it. I just I hate it when they're really trying to push themselves and encourage me to feel better, and they always mean well. But just knowing that they're there, I prefer so much more, and I think it kind of encourages me to reach out to them, and it's kind of that push I need. And I know with a lot of people, especially friends of mine, they need a push to really get into things like therapy and conversation therapy and exposure therapy. And I know this, we talked about before, there was kind of a taboo behind that, and they don't feel that they're ready enough, or that they're at the worst state to where they need that help. So how would you encourage someone without really pushing them into it to begin in therapy to the point you can see it in their face, they need to get professional help that they need? Because my friends, I know, they really had to push me to personally. They had to push me a lot, and thank God they did. So
This is another tricky one, because if you push too hard, we may delay their exposure to exposure therapy, for instance. I think it's important to really check in the temperature of the friend, because it is not one size fit all. But what does work is storytelling, believe it or not. Storytelling, because the stories are always one removed from us. So I can share that if it's my story would be best, but if I don't have a story, I can share that, like, my friend story this and exactly of a story that I know. Storytelling is important, and also taking the name out of therapy. The way I call it acknowledging really what therapy is this, or any kinds of help, professional help. One, I acknowledge that I have a challenge. I'm going through a challenging time. Two, I want help to identify it. So I need somebody to hold the space for me so I can speak about it. And three is finding some tools or solutions, so-called, to sort of going through the experience. So generalizing what it is instead of calling it therapy. Like I've done this before. I say, like, would you like to talk to someone about this? You see, because if they are stuck on the name therapy, I'm not going to use that name. I'm going to say, you want to talk to someone? And once the person starts the process of sharing, acknowledging, so 2 out of 3 is done. And now it becomes easy. When I open it up to you, you're my friend, you're my neighbor, colleague, and then it becomes easier to go and speak to somebody else. And I would go that way, but not push it too hard, because sometimes we become, again, fixers, and then that just delays the process of our loved ones or our friends to go through there. Yeah.
Yeah, I use that a lot, the storytelling and modeling, but, oftentimes when I'm talking to a friend and they're going through a difficult situation, oftentimes I can relate to something that they're going through. So I'll relate to them. I'll share with them, yeah, I understand. I went through a period where, it was so difficult. I get it. And oftentimes I just pause and they'll be like, well, what did you do? Yeah, that's what I was going through. What did you do? They ask. And I'll be like, oh, well, I went and I saw someone who helped me navigate through it. Oh, well, who is that person? Or saying it in the form as a story of someone else. Oh, I had a friend who was going through the same thing, and they were going through such a difficult time, and they ended up, managing through it. They got some help, and then, that opens up the door for your friend to ask further about that.
And as a Norman Aid peer counselor, it is 100% encouraged to bring in your friends, bring in peers, siblings, anybody. It is 100% encouraged to come in, have a session together, even if it just means taking 15 minutes time out of class to just sit there and calm down and maybe recharge your social batteries. Like, always welcomed here. And I know for me, I feel like I'm a very empathetic person. I feel for other people, and sometimes it can take up too much of my time to where I put my own problems aside and I put my own life aside to try and be that fixer for that other person, or even just being there. I devote too much time, and I think there's a very fine line in between trying to help someone else and also helping yourself. Love yourself before you love someone else. So how can you set boundaries for yourself where you're not devoting 100% of your time just to one person, to where you forget about yourself, where you kind of have like a 60-40 situation?
Boundary setting, emotional boundaries are very, very important. In fact, we have an energetic field. We all do. That's about the size of your hand. If you drew a circle, that's my energetic field. So when I either physically get close, that's why when somebody comes close, you're sort of like go a little bit, because you know that energetically you were just compromised maybe. So we can get compromised physically, mentally, and energetically, and it's important to know that. So the first step is to know that there needs to be boundaries. Of course, crises are exceptions. I will drop anything, and have done that, unfortunately, recently. A student of mine was attempting suicide, so I had to drop everything, cancel it. But that just hopefully happens not that often for all of us. So knowing that there needs to be a boundary, knowing that if I am drowning with the person in the pool, I cannot help them. That's just a logical thing to understand, that I can only help them if I'm out of the pool and trying to help them. Yes. So protection of that energetic boundaries, understanding that I'm the observer of the problem, not the experiencer of the problem. That alone brings my powers back, because in the midst of crisis, it's hard to stay focused. So for their sake, for the love that I may have for them, the care I may have for them, and for my sake, I'm better off. Just imagine this is what I do for a living. Imagine if I didn't have that boundaries, just any given day, how I would end up. I would be a nervous wreck, probably not able to do anything or communicate or socialize after that. Whereas when I am aware, when I go in with service mentality, but with very clear boundaries, energetic boundaries, and knowing that I'm the observer, not the experiencer. And then the question is, can I just hold the space for them? Not can I fix them? You are not the fixer. We may be able to help to fix the problem, but they need to be the initiator. And at best, when I'm in my highest powers, I can assist. But you need to, now we talk about in the world of child psychology and mindfulness, we say if a 2-year-old comes home and says, Mommy, Johnny really pushed me and bothered me, the first question is, tell me more, hearing them. Exactly. 2, how do you feel? How do you feel? This formula, 4-step formula, applies to everybody. Tell me what happened. Can I hear you? Yes, I can. 2, tell me how you feel. Because the moment you ask that question, the person needs to connect to their feelings. And the beginning will be just bad, like it's a generic, but they get to actually say, I feel really alone and disappointed, and they get deeper. Yeah. Exactly. And then the third question is, are you ready for it? What are you going to do about it? This is actually a very empowering question. What are you going to do about it? And the last question is, how can I help? So if we just followed these, the same thing that you would follow for a 2-year-old applies to my very, very successful celebrity who panics at the night before when they're receiving their award, believe it or not. I make more money in those nights than the rest of the year. Because I'm called in, I go in the last minute. And it's the same thing. Tell me what's happening. And how do you feel about it? And it feels like a 10. Giving a number, by the way, is very helpful. 0 to 10, I'm sure you all heard it. It feels 10 is death. And we've experienced it only once, and after that, there's no problem. I don't even need to be here. But we feel a lot of things as 10. So how do you feel about it? How intense is it for you? What are you going to do? He said, what do you mean, what are you going to do? I hired you to tell me what to do. What do I know? When was the last time I received Golden Globe? What are you going to do about it? But then the question is, how can I help? So these 4 steps are so helpful and so simple, but also so practical. So that's what I'm going to say.
I'll just add something small here, which is it's a mindset and a paradigm, which she's speaking of as well, which is it's not her responsibility. The emotions of another person is not her responsibility. And I think this is huge, being someone who's also an empath myself. There's also been oftentimes this feeling it's almost as if I'm responsible to make sure that they're doing okay, right? And that's a heavy feeling, right? When we recognize that this person is going through their journey and they're going through it because they need it. In fact, this is an opportunity for them. And all you are is you're just a friend who's helping kind of facilitate. They've come through it. But what they're going through is not bad. It's actually, you flip the script, it's actually it's an opportunity for them. It's good, right? And the moment we take the bad out of it, it takes a huge weight off of our own shoulders.
I know for me personally, I have a very busy lifestyle. I'm an athlete both in and outside of school. I'm taking a ton of classes. And so at times, there's moments where I feel like I mean, especially like a couple weeks ago, I had everything pile up. There's always that 1 week in the year where everything piles up into 1 week, whether it's tests or a competition or I'm traveling. It all just lines up somehow magically each year. And getting out of that kind of hole, I almost feel kind of hopeless, like where it's like there's no point. I have so much work. I have X amount of missing assignments, and I'm not understanding this, and I've missed X amount of days of school. How can you kind of motivate yourself to get out of that hole of like hopelessness, or like kind of motivate yourself to restart again?
Pausing is a very important part of life that most young people have not incorporated it, as far as I can tell, or at least young people that I work with. So that pausing and contemplation time allows you to really understand that what is the next step. These talented, outwardly successful people I work with, I always ask them, when did you come up with this solution or with this amazing idea? And I'm yet to hear that they say, like when they hired the most expensive consultant or something, you know what they say? Chilling, if they're young, shower, walking the dog, nothing. So these are all pauses, different names for pausing. So create a sort of aspect of pause, whatever that means to you, your chilling experience. And also what is very helpful is to create block some time to really, really catch up. So we do it as companies. When I advise companies, they take a break from every activity for a week and they catch up. We do it as people, as adults, and youngsters need to do it to catch up, because catching up allows you to go back to create some time, basically, to catch up. That's my suggestion.
That's been one of the most powerful tools for me in my personal development journey, has been do nothing. I'm very much, I'm a get things done, constantly do. I don't want to be, I don't want to be lazy. I had all of these, I had this whole stigma about being as productive as I can with my time. And it's incredible just how profound pausing and just doing nothing. When my mind actually, now when my mind starts being like, no, you got to do this and that, I pause. Mm-hmm. Anytime that my mind I'm feeling pressure or urgency, I just take a moment to pause. And it's amazing what happens is, in the pause, eventually inspiration comes, spontaneity comes, joy comes. And it's like, okay, no, I'm going to do that thing next because that's what excites me. It's a very different energy than you should be doing this. We're short on time. Yeah. So, do nothing is really powerful, and it's very uncomfortable. So, if your personality you have a competitive personality, you're into sports and whatnot, it's a great way to test yourself, not only test yourself, but to develop a skill, right? It's like the stamina to be able to do nothing, because your nervous system, your mind is going to react and want to keep doing things. And it's an opportunity. You can look at it almost as a game. Can I stay present and transcend my mind's urgency to want to do things? In the same way, when you're running or playing any sports and your body's like, oh, I don't know if I can do anymore, and you're like, no, we're gonna take this a little bit further. Pausing does not have to be a whole day-long thing, a week-long thing. Pausing can literally be 10 minutes of pause. Mm-hmm. It could be, okay, I finished my homework assignment. Before I go to the next thing, I'm going to take a 10-minute pause and I'm going to do nothing. It's incredible how powerful that can be. And we get opportunities for pauses throughout the day. Yeah. When we're waiting in line to, at the grocery store, or when we are driving, and we reach a red light. These are all small micro opportunities for us to pause.
I'm going to add something to that. It could be 10 breaths, not even 10 minutes. It could be 10 seconds. And here's the music of life. It's do, be, do, be, do, be, do, be. And you know how we're living it? So go to the music of life. Yes.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors and partners, Michael J. LeBeau, Norman Aid Peer Counselors, and of course, we'd like to thank our listeners. Stay safe and make today well lived.